Our minds are so incredible, and we can use them to have heaven on earth or be put into jail. How does one use their mind to cultivate a beautiful existence?
I think it's very simple, and you just summarize it. There's that choice of heaven or hell. And, often it comes by conscious design, or it becomes by unconscious design, or you could say neglect. So I believe, human nature is that we aspire to experience heaven, and we're encoded for that. Like, no one gets joy out of being stressed out and miserable, or being sick and unwell, or feeling really negative and depressed. Like, no one aspires for that state. And it's because it is so against the grain of our nature. But the challenge is when, you're on this planet, which is so interdependent and interconnected, just as we chatted off air, like up here, we had six weeks of like pretty much constant rain. I've never seen so much water in my life. And I just noticed towards the end of it, and there was a lot of us up here feeling the same way, like, I love you, rain, and I love natural cycles, but man, I'm seriously over this.
Yeah,
Because, the weather, it does impact us. That's why we put people in
definitely.
solitary confinement in darkness, just to punish them. So what that's really saying is that there's this inbuilt set point that as human beings, we want to experience a particular quality of life. And what we don't realize is such a key determinant of that isn't so much the weather, but it's how we think. It's our invisible world. And that's the challenge that we have with the mind, is it's not like someone's iron levels that you can measure, or someone's blood pressure that's very easy to determine. Like, how do you determine someone's consciousness state, or the structure and the functioning and all the qualities and all the nuances of their mind? It's more challenging art. But I feel the simplicity is for that being to just get very, very clear about, what do I want to be experiencing in my everyday life?
Yes.
Make that determination, set that intention, and then it becomes really easy. Because you notice when you drift from that, you just correct, and you get pulled away by life or your own habits, and then you learn to just come back again. But you have to have something in your core being and understanding that this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what I aspire to be more of each and every day. So I believe you have to cultivate the mind in a very consistent way, and you have to have, a target or a goal in your awareness. And then you can get into all the subtleties and the detail of that, of like, you have to experience it as being formed, so you can merge with it rather than constantly chase it. But you get clear on, what am I about? What do I want to be experiencing?
Yeah.
And it's one of the ways I start with people is we remove interference first, get rid of all the obvious stuff that's just leading you to ruin, in subtle ways or in very obvious ways. Working too much, whether it be, 60, 70 hours a week, it's getting too much. Or drinking too much alcohol, having, a full bottle of wine after work each night, or not abstaining from exercise when you should be.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be. Like, people do really obvious stuff that they just don't own up to, or don't sit back to go, okay, how am I interfering? What are the patterns of ruin that I'm cultivating? And once you let go of them, you feel this surge.
Yes.
Like, amazing. Like, say someone, oh, I feel like shit. Okay, well, how about we just pull back on you having all this alcohol every night, and you see them a week later, I feel amazing, can't believe it. Well, fancy that. You stop loading your body and with all this stuff, you start to feel better.
Yeah.
So I'd say you start to remove the obvious stuff first, and then you transition into, getting creative.
How do you deal with things that rise up in your life that get you down?
Yeah. And I'm glad you acknowledge that still happens for me, because a lot of people think, this guy's a teacher and this and that, so he's exempt from all this stuff. And
No,
what
I
I've come to
know.
appreciate.
I know that I've interviewed enough gurus, not that, whatever, to know that everyone is human as well.
Yeah, and it feels like the lessons never stop and the
No.
challenges never stop coming, and nor does the growth, because end of growth means decay. So
Mm.
it feels like if you're on this planet and you're here and you're living, life's going to say evolve, my friend. And that will come generally by way of contrast and challenges, etc. So what I've come to appreciate is that whilst, we were saying there's other interferences that are pretty obvious, but the interference just becomes subtler. So rather than being a physical, material, tangible thing that you're doing or emitting, on a psychological level, there is some way that you're negating the flow of life. And that's when the structures of the mind need to be observed and corrected, because that's what creates suffering ultimately.
Yeah.
Pain is not suffering. Suffering is generated when you resist what's happening in your life. So what I would typically do is go on an external level, that person's done this thing or this thing's happened, and that will affect you in a particular way because you're a human being. But what I do after that is I try to dive much deeper within myself and go, okay, what resistance is present in me, or what am I being asked to learn here? Or what do I need to transform or evolve in me so this thing doesn't have the same command or weight that it has right now? And I find like it's everything that disturbs us or unsettles us can ultimately bring us into a deeper understanding of ourselves. So I always go to that. Okay, what can I do? What's going on in me? Let's attend to that first, clear that, do that work. And then when you return to that thing that was giving you struggle of some kind, you've noticed its power's diminished.
Yes.
It's really just an event, but it just has no gravity anymore. So like I recently went through something, and I feel this throat thing was actually triggered by that, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
There's often that, that debate, does our emotional state trigger what goes on in our body?
Yeah.
And I think there's an absolute correlation.
Oh,
Whether it's
100%.
whether it's like absolute and one for one, sometimes you just, you get unwell. You don't break your leg because there's something emotionally happening within you. Sometimes I think the accidents or things unfold. But so with my throat, I had to clear what was around that, what story was around that, and what I was, what I was being affected, how I was being affected. I had to reframe and process that. And then I felt this liberation. So I feel like that's the gift of those times when we feel like really disturbed, is the liberation that comes with it.